Protesters converged on the convention hall in Houston, where the National Rifle Association had its first convention since the pandemic. Ordinarily a non-news event, but obviously the coincidental timing between that and the shooting here in Uvalde has risen the gun control, gun safety debate to the very forefront of the American political conversation, something that we weren't even talking about a week ago. Here's one mom that Jorge Ventura of the Daily Caller talked to in that protest.
My kids are in 2nd and 4th grade, and this one hit a lot closer to home than, we're comfortable with. Our politicians have been going back and forth since Columbine, 23 years. We made barely any movement in what we need to do to protect our kids at school.
And those who don't like the NRA will tell you there's been no movement because the NRA has a very outsized control on Republican senators, even conservative Democratic senators, when it comes to any issue of gun control legislation. The NRA takes a hard line. They don't give an inch. Bring in Batya Ungar-Sargon to talk about the cultural side of the gun control debate. Batya, is it that the NRA controls Republicans, or is it that there's a lot of Republican voters that the NRA speaks for?
So first of all, thank you so much for having me, Leland. I heard your question during the DPS presser. It was such a great question you asked. Don't the families deserve an apology? And it was just great to hear your voice and hear you asking that question. And I'm really honored to be able to talk at this somber time. I think we're all just mourning together. And so the ability to, talk to this topic, I think is really important. So thank you for having me. I sort of chuckle when people talk about the NRA controlling politicians. What exactly are they using in order to do that? What is the leverage they have? Of course, they have no leverage whatsoever. The NRA represents what they think the voters want. And that is what politicians are responding to. The fact that, Americans like their guns. It's not like the NRA is this shadowy organization that is able to somehow behind the scenes control Republicans. Republicans are responding to what they know their voters want. The NRA's power comes from the fact that it reflects what voters like as opposed to the other way around.
When we see these protests of mass numbers of people, and obviously this is in Texas, they had a school shooting in Santa Fe a couple of years ago. There was a lot of hope in Texas, especially among Democrats, that there would be this bipartisan moment. Didn't happen. And now we're here. For all the protests and all the anger we see and all the coverage of it we see, is gun control legislation really something that is going to be top even 5 issues among most voters, Democrat or Republican, come November?
I don't know how much voters themselves are going to be thinking about it, but I know that Mitch McConnell yesterday reached out to Senator John Cornyn of Texas and said to him, go make a deal with the Democrats. So again, to the, the power of the NRA, right? Like suddenly what's going on here, right? So that I think the Republicans do right now feel some sort of pressure to meet the Democrats halfway. The issues that have come up are things like red flag laws, which are really important, I think really good. Things like expanded background checks, right? These sort of commonsensical gun laws that have actually a lot of support among the American people. And I think if the Democrats can, be satisfied with some of these more limited proposals, they will be able to make a deal. The question will be if they insist on larger things like banning, assault rifles, AR-15s. That's not going to get any traction.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not going to get any traction. And the question will be, will Democrats sort of be willing to compromise on a few things? And also a big part of this is how much pressure the media keeps up on Republicans, right? Because Republicans are responding to this right now. And you think about what President Trump, for example, said today to the NRA. A lot of it, though, is things that have already done. It's a very easy way to sort of placate we're doing something without affecting gun rights. Here's the president, former president.
What we need now is a top-to-bottom security overhaul at schools all across our country. Every building should have a single point of entry. There should be strong exterior fencing, metal detectors, and the use of new technology to make sure that no unauthorized individual can ever enter the school with a weapon. No one should ever be able to get anywhere near a classroom until they have been checked, scanned, screened, and fully approved. In addition, classroom doors should be hardened to make them lockable from the inside and closed to intruders from the outside. And above all, from this day forward, every school in America should have a police officer or an armed resource officer on duty at all times.
All great things, most of which the school here in Uvalde had, Batya. Is this sort of enough to placate center voters for Republicans? And I'm thinking Midwest soccer moms, swing voters. Will they say, yeah, that all sounds good, and Republicans are on board with school safety, so who cares about gun control?
You know, I think to me, more interesting than what Trump said was the other thing that you've been hearing a lot from conservatives, which is the mental health piece of it. So Governor Abbott at a presser this afternoon spoke at great length about wanting to fund much more extensive mental health care, which is something that, you know, lefties are supposed to really be into and really care a lot about. And, you know, expanded healthcare. He was sitting there saying, does anybody here think that our healthcare coverage is good enough, that our mental health care coverage is good enough, that people are getting the treatment they want? You know, to me, if the Republicans become this...
We hear it. It's a great, it's an important point on the mental health side. I got to get you, I got 30 seconds. You think about the number of kids who were killed here. Horrific and tragic. About the same number of kids have already been killed in Chicago alone this year. Why, when we see a school shooting, is it so much different in the coverage and the outrage than when they are killed on the streets of Chicago?
You know, Leland, we're in a moment where I'm trying to be as generous as possible because it's the only way I know to overcome my grief is to extend generosity to people, especially people I think are wrong. So I don't want to give the sort of, you know, cynical answer, which is that look at who's in charge.
Tell you, hold on. I'm up against a hard break. Save the thought. We're going to talk about it next week. Batya, have a great weekend. Thank you. We'll be right back from Uvalde. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.